Hello there, how are you? Nice to see you all. So enjoying your summer holidays, everyone. Time to leisure, relax, rest and read. I hope you're reading a lot, listening to news, what's happening. Okay, this time I found this incredible story about friendship between stray animals such as a cat and a dog, and I'll tell you more. So, friendship, as long as you are a living being, you have emotions, and one of the most beautiful emotions is loyalty and lending a hand in need, isn't it? Whether be it a human being or an animal. And it's amazing. Remember, I read you the story about the elephant and how intelligent she was. She recognized her doctor even after 7 weeks, came and said thank you. And Shui Dog took revenge because she understood that this in charge had sent his rider to a dangerous mission, and that's why he had died and he had lost his owner, and that was very sad for her. So here we find loyalty and friendship. So a life is saved, and the story's name is Incredible Journey, and this has been written by Sheila Burnford. The Incredible Journey. And here are the animals you can see in black and white. Okay, let's get started. In the cold hour before dawn, the bull terrier woke, then staggered painfully to his feet. He was trembling with cold and was extremely hungry and thirsty. He walked stiffly in the direction of the pool nearby, passing on his way the cat, who was crouched over something held between his paws. Let's see. The terrier heard a crunching sound as the cat's jaws moved, and wagging his tail in interest, moved over to investigate. What do you think the crunching sound was coming from? Yeah, the cat was munching, eating something. The cat regarded him distantly, then stalked away, leaving the carcass, the dead bird or whatever it was. But to the terrier, it was a disappointing mess of feathers only. So clearly, it was a bird. He drank long and deeply at the pool, and on his return, tried the feathers again, for he was ravenous. But they stuck in his gullet, and he wrenched them out. He nibbled at some stalks of grass, then delicately his lips rolled back over his teeth, picked a few overripe raspberries from a low bush. He had always liked to eat domestic raspberries this way, and although the taste was reassuringly familiar, it did nothing to appease his hunger this time. Poor fellow, he's so hungry. Imagine what he would have felt when he had heard the crunching sounds coming from the jaws of the cat. Thank you. He was pleased to see the young dog appear. Presently, he wagged his tail and licked the other's face, then followed resignedly when a move was made towards the direction of the road. So the little dog, who's not as hungry or as weak as this one, so he leads the way and they start walking towards the road. They were followed a few moments later by the cat, who was still licking his lips after his feathery breakfast. Yum, yum. In the grey light of the dawn, the trio continued down the side of the road until they reached a point where it took a right angle turn. Here they hesitated before a disused logging trail that led westward from the side of the road, its entrance almost concealed by overhanging branches. The leader lifted his head and appeared almost as though he was searching for the scent of something, some reassurance, and apparently he found it, for he led his companion up the trail between the overhanging trees. He smelt of some kind of food. The going here was softer, that means the track was softer, was muddy. The middle was overgrown with grass, and the ruts on either side were full of dead leaves, like nobody has treaded that path, at least recently. The close-growing trees, which almost met overhead, would afford more shade when the sun rose higher. These were all considerations that the old dog needed, for he had been tired today even before he started, and his pace was already considerably slower. Both dogs were very hungry and watched enviously when the cat caught and killed a chipmunk while they were resting by a stream in the middle of the day. It happened again, but when the old dog advanced, with a hopeful wag of his tail, the cat, growling, retreated into the bushes with his prey. Puzzled and disappointed, the terrier sat listening to the crunching sounds again inside the bushes, saliva running from his mouth, drooling from his mouth. Poor fellow, he does not have the strength to run after a prey. A few minutes later, the cat emerged and sat down daintily, cleaning his whiskers. You know how the cats clean their whiskers and lick their paws and clean their face and wash their face. The old dog licked the black Siamese face with his panting tongue and was affectionately patted on the nose in return. So he licked the cat. Restless with hunger, he wandered up the banks of the creek, investigating every rock and hollow, pushing his hopeful nose through tunnels of withered sedge and into the yielding earth of molehills. Sadly, he lay down by an unrewarding blueberry bush, drew his paws down tightly over his blackened face, then licked the dirt off them. The young dog too was hungry, but we would have to be on the verge of starvation before the barriers of deep-rooted Labrador heredity would be broken down. You know, pet dogs in Labrador, they're very decent folks. They never hurt anybody unless really desperately the need comes. So here, if they were really that hungry, if he was that young Labrador, then maybe he would have forgotten on his manners. For generations, his ancestors had been bred to retrieve without harming, and there was nothing of the hunter in his makeup. He was not a hunting dog. As yet, any killing was abhorrent to him. He drank deeply at the stream and urged his companions on. The trail ran high over the crest of this hill, wooded country, and the surrounding countryside was filled with an overwhelming beauty of color, the reds and the vermilions of the occasional maples, pale birch and yellow poplar, all colored. Imagine the riot of colors in autumn. Several times they passed log rams built into the side of the hill, picking their way across the deep ruts left by the timber sleighs below. All right, sometimes they passed derelict buildings in rank, overgrown clearings, old stables for the bush horses, and living quarters for the men who had worked there a generation ago. Then what happens is, the animals, strangely enough, did not like the evidences they saw: broken cottages and sagging windows, and skirted them as far as possible, hair raised along their backs. Why? Because they were on. They had to be careful. Late in the afternoon, the old dog's speed had slowed down to a stumbling walk, and it seemed as if only sheer determination were keeping him on his feet at all. He was dizzy and swaying, and his heart was pounding. Tap, 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 tap. The cat must have sensed this general failing, for he now walked steadily beside the dogs, very close to his tottering old friend, and muttered plaintive, worried bleats to soothe him. Finally, the old dog came to stand still by a deep rut, half filled with muddy water. He stood there as if he had not even the strength to step around it. His head sagged and his whole body was trembling. Then, as he tried to lap the water, his legs seemed to crumple under him and he collapsed, half in and half out of the rut. His eyes were closed and his body moved only to the long, shallow, shuddering breaths that came at widening intervals. So his breathing had slowed down. Soon he lay completely limp and still. The young dog became frantic now. He whined, oh, as he scratched at the edge of the red, then nudged and pushed with his nose, doing everything in his power to rouse the huddled, unresponsive body of the big dog. Again and again he barked, and the cat growled softly and continuously, walking back and forth and rubbing his whole length against the dirty, muddied head. Here you can see the almost unconscious dog, and the two are trying to wake him up. They know it's dangerous. If they don't wake him up and feed him, something is going to die. He's almost dead as such, right? There was no response to the attention. The old dog lay unconscious and remote. The two animals grew silent and sat by his side, disturbed and uneasy, until at last it turned and left him, neither looking back. The Labrador disappearing into the bushes where the crackle of broken branches marked his progress farther and farther away. The cat stalking a partridge which had appeared at the side of the trail, some 100 yards away. And was pecking unconcernedly at the sandy dirt. But at the shrill warning of a squirrel, it flew off across the trail with a sudden whir into the trees, while the cat was still some distance away. Undaunted, still licking his lips in anticipation, the cat continued around to search for another and was lost to sight. The shadows lengthened across the deserted track, and the evening wind sighed down, down it to sweep a flurry of whispering leaves across the rut. The curious squirrel peered in bright-eyed wonder from a nearby tree, clucking softly to itself. A shrew ran halfway across, paused and ran back. There was a soft sound of wings as a whiskey jack landed. The wind died away, a sudden hush descended. Suddenly there was a sound of a heavy body pushing through the undergrowth, accompanied by a sharp cracking of branches, and the spell was broken. Chattering shrilly in alarm and excitement, the squirrel ran up the trunk of the tree, and the whiskey jacks flew off. Now on the trail on all fours scampered a half-grown bear cub, round furry ears, pricked and small deep-set eyes alight with curiosity in the sharp little face as he beheld the old dog. He thought it was food for him, a victim, a prey. There was a grunting, shuffling sound in the bush behind the cub. Oh my God! His mother was investigating a rotten tree stump. Here you can see the bear cubs coming in. Now that's becoming dangerous. The cub stood for a moment and then hesitantly advanced towards the rut where the terrier lay. He sniffed around, wrinkling his facile nose at the unfamiliar smell, then reached out a long curved black paw, and tapped the white head. For a moment, the mists of unconsciousness cleared, and the old dog opened his eyes, aware of danger. He smelt it. He sensed it. You know, this sense of smell and hearing is very sharp. The cub sprang back in alarm and watched from a safe distance. Seeing that there was no further movement, he looked back and cuffed again with his paw, this time harder, and watched for a response. Only enough strength was left in the old dog for a valiant baring of his teeth. He did, that's all. He snarled faintly with pain and hatred when his shoulder was raked by the wicked claw of the bear, of the excited cub, and made an attempt to struggle to his feet. The smell of the drawn blood excited the cub further. He straddled the dog's body and started to play with a long white tail, nibbling at the end like a child with a new toy. But there was no response. All conscious effort drained, the old dog no longer felt any pain or indignity of being defeated. He lay as though asleep, his eyes veiled and unseen, his lips still curled in a snarl. Around the bend in the trail, dragging a large dead partridge by the wing, came the cat. The wing sprang back softly from his mouth as he gazed transfixed at the scene before him. In one split second, a terrible transformation took place. His blue eyes glittered hugely and evilly in the black masked face, and every hair on the wheat-colored body, so it's a brown-colored cat with black, and it has black face, and every hair on his body stood upright, so that he appeared twice his real size, you know, the hackles, stood up. Even the chocolate-colored tail puffed up as it switched from side to side. You know, when they are upset or angry, the cats move their tails, unlike the dogs. He crouched low to the ground, tensed and ready, and uttered a high, ear-splitting scream. Wow! And at the startled cub turned, the cat sprang. He landed on the back of the dark furred neck, clinging with his monkey-like hind legs while he raked his claws across the cub's eyes. Oh my God! Again and again he raked with the terrible talons, hissing and spitting in murderous devilry, until the cub was screaming in pain and fear, blinded with blood. Can you imagine the cat coming to the rescue? And it was, what was it bringing? A partridge, a bird, for the dog to feed him. He knew he's going to die otherwise, instead of eating it himself. Oh, and now he blinded the cub, whose eyes were blinded with blood. He was making brushing movements with his paws to dislodge the unseen horror from his back. His screams were answered by a thunderous roar as a huge black she-bear crashed through the bushes and rushed to the cub. She swiped at the clinging cat with a tremendous paw, but the cat was too quick for her, and with a hiss of fury leaped to the ground and disappeared behind a tree. The unfortunate cub's head received the full force of the blow, and he was sent spinning across the track. In a blind, frustrated rage, maddened by the cries of a cub, the mother turned for something on which to vent her fury, and saw the still figure of the old dog. Even as she lumbered snarling towards him, the cat distracted attention with a sudden leap to the side of the track. See how clever, how brilliant the cat is now. He is distracting the big bear. They know they can't fight him. He's about to attack the unconscious dog, the bull terrier. The bear halted, then reared up to full height for attack, red eyes glinting savagely, neck upstretched and head weaving from side to side in a menacing snake-like. The cat uttered another banshee scream, and stepped forward with a stiff-legged sideways movement and squinting terrible eyes fixed on his enormous adversary. Something like fear or indecision crept into the bear's eyes. As the cat advanced, she shuffled back a step with lowered head. Slow, deliberate, purposeful, the cat came on. He risked his life. Again the bear retreated, bewildered by the tactics of this terrible small animal, distraught by her cub's whimpering, slowly falling back before the relentless inch by inch advance of the cat. Oh my God, unbelievable. Now the cat stopped and crouched low. Lashing his tail from side to side, the bear stopped too, shifting her weight uneasily before the spring that must follow, longing to decamp but afraid to turn her back. A sudden crackle of undergrowth turned the huge animal into a statue rigid with apprehension, and when a great dog sprang out of the bush and stood beside the cat, teeth bared and snarling, every hair on his russet back and rut erect, she dropped on all fours, turned swiftly, and fled towards her cab. Can you believe it? The cat and this dog, the retriever, oh wow, these saved, putting their life in danger. There was a last crowd of desperate bravado from the bush and a whimpering cry. Then the sounds of the bear's escape receded in the distance. Finally, all was quiet again. The curious squirrel leaped from his ringside seat and scrambled. The cat shrank back to his normal size. His eyes regained the usual cool, detached look. He shook each paw distastefully in turn, glanced briefly at the limb-mudded bundle by his feet, blood oozing from 4 deep barrel gashes on the shoulder, then turned and sauntered slowly down the track towards his patronage. Didn't care for the bear cub. The young dog nosed his friend all over, his lips wrinkling at the rank bear smell, then attempted to lick the wounds with his rough tongue. He scratched fresh leaves over the bloodstains once, then barked by the old dog's head, but there was no response, and at last he lay down panting on the grass. His eyes were uneasy and watchful. The hair still stood upright in a ridge on his back, and from time to time he whined in perplexity. He watched the cat drag a large grey bird almost up to the nose of the unconscious dog, then slowly began to tear at the bird's flesh. He growled softly, but the cat ignored him and continued his tearing and eating. Presently, see how she is kind of enticing him, luring him. The enticing smell of raw, warm meat filtered through into the old dog's senses. He opened one eye and gave an appreciative sniff. The effect was galvanizing. His muddied, half-chewed tail stirred, and he raised his shoulders, then his forelegs. With a convulsive effort, like an old workhorse, he was a pitiful sight. The half of his body that had lain in the rut was black and soaking, while other was streaked and stained with blood. He looked like some grotesque item. He trembled violently and uncontrollably throughout the length of the body, right? But in the sunken depths of the slanted back currant eyes, there was a faint gleam of interest, which increased as he pushed his nose into the still warm bundle of soft grey feathers. This time there was no growling rebuff over the prey. Instead, the cat sat down a few yards away. She succeeded in waking up the dog to the smell of the raw meat, which she had torn away from the patronage. Feathers studiedly aloof, she's observing, and indifferent as if she doesn't care, then painstakingly washed down the length of his tail. When the end twitched, he pinned it down with a paw. Excuse me, can I have a sip of water, please? Thank you. The old dog ate, crunching the bones, ravenously with his blunt teeth. Even as his companions watched him, they did not take a bite. They did not come near. A miraculous strength slowly seeped back into his body. He dozed for a while, a feather hanging from his mouth, then woke again to finish the last morsel. By nightfall, he was able to walk over the soft grass at the side of the track, where he lay down and blinked happily at his companions, wagging his tail. The Labrador lay down beside him and licked the wounded shoulder. An hour or two later, the purring cat joined them, carelessly dropping another succulent morsel by his old friend's nose, feeding him more. This was a deer mouse, a little creature with big eyes and long hind legs like a miniature kangaroo. It was swallowed with a satisfying gulp, and soon the old dog slept. But the cat purring against his chest and the young dog curled at his back were wakeful and alert most of the remaining night. Neither moved from his side because they knew he was not. See, they're keeping guard. Once they have saved him, rescued him, revived him, can you imagine how intelligent, how loyal, how strong and courageous they can be? So, that's what heroes are made of, isn't it? I hope you're all grown-ups, you're all taking care of yourselves and your families and your younger siblings, cousins, whoever is around, and making sure you wear masks, you keep social distancing, and you are wearing gloves and masks when you step out, and washing your hands all the time with soap for 20 seconds, like surgeons and doctors. I was really inspired by this story. I hope you are too, and you enjoyed it. Let me know if you're interested in any other story. You could write to me, you could directly message to me. That would be a pleasure to hear from you. Lovely to see you all. Bye-bye.